Socialism surge is threatening to shake up the Democratic Party. Big wins for Mamdani-backed candidates in New York this week, just the latest for the Democratic Socialists of America. Veteran Democratic strategist James Carville says it could be time to split.
I actually do think it's time for Democrats to talk the S word, schism. I really do. Everybody's always said, no, we're coalition, we're a big tent. And there's just some that I can't be in the same camp with.
Carville also weighed in on the party's future yesterday on Fox.
It's something that Democrats are going to have to answer for. If you want to have political power, of which we do, in which I think we will acquire come November, then you have to answer these kind of questions. You shouldn't duck them. And I think there's going to be something to deal with. And the Hakeem is going to have to deal with this. It's not going away.
Who better to talk about what's going on in the Democratic Party than who's joining me now? Corbin Trent, the former communications director for Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Melissa DeRosa, the Democratic strategist and author. Guys, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Melissa, I want to get you to react to James there. Do you think that there needs to be a schism, or is this one big party, one big tent, or do we need separate tents?
No, listen, I've been saying this for the last several months and trying to sound the alarm on this. These people are not Democrats. They are socialists. And what they've done is they have strategically in the last 10 years, since Bernie did his run in 2016, come up with a strategy in order to take over the Democratic Party. They're very organized. They've been working on the local level, but make no mistake, these are not Democrats. They fundamentally do not believe in the same things as far as public safety, as far as the seizure of private property, as far as celebrating terrorism and stoking anti-Semitism. And so, yes, big tent. We've always been a big tent. No to hijack tent. And the reality is they should start their own party and run there, but they know that won't be successful, so they're trying to take over ours, and it is a disaster.
Corbin, what do you think about that? Should there be a Mamdani DSA party outside of the Democratic Party? Or
no, I think that's nonsense. I mean, no, I don't think there should be these are Democrats, actually. And, fortunately, people like James Carville don't get to decide who is not a Democrat. The voters get to decide that. And the roots of the Democratic Party run deep as America does when it comes to socialism. So many of the things that we have today, whether it's the weekend, 8-hour workday, interstate highway systems, electricity, like the TVA, the ability to build capitalist system on top of what we have comes from socialism. The fire departments, the military, the VA. Like socialism is all through this entire economy. It's all through this entire country. The thing that we have, the country, the greatest country on the earth, was built with a combination of socialism and capitalism. That is when things work the best. And what we've had for the last, say, 40 or 50 years, they call neoliberalism. And that's where the Republicans and the Democrats like the DLC and Bill Clinton and James Carville got together with the Republican Party and decided they had it figured out. And we didn't need to build stuff anymore. We didn't need to make stuff anymore. And that socialism was a bad thing and that we should reject it. And they were wrong. And it's destroyed this country's ability to create what it needs. It's destroyed our ability to create infrastructure. It's destroyed our ability to handle the complications and the challenges that get thrown at us. And it's even penetrated our ability to be militarily capable. Right now, we don't have the capacity to produce the armaments that we need to support, say, for example, the Ukrainians. We are not able to build the amount of things that we need to have a defensive posture against an enemy. And that's because we sold off our means of production. We gave it to China. We gave it to lots of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Melissa, you look at a conversation that Democrats have been having, especially since 2024, that the party does need to change, does need to put a different foot forward, maybe some different policy positions. Where does the Democratic Party find that?
Well, first of all, I just need to respond to the last comments. And with all due respect, that is nonsense. I was the top aide to Governor Cuomo in New York. We built the LaGuardia Airport. We built JFK. We did the 2nd Avenue subway extension. We did free college for the middle class for public colleges. We did $15 minimum wage, paid family leave, gay marriage. So it is not true to say that the Democratic Party has been defunct, perhaps at the federal level. And honestly, I can't name a single actual concrete example of an accomplishment that Bernie Sanders has actually gotten over the finish line, not just talked about at rallies, but actually gotten over the finish line. But there is different ways of governing, and there is a successful Democratic governing model, and yes, social safety net, and yes, Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, but no to seizing the means of production, no to selling a bill of goods you can never deliver on, like free buses and free groceries and things that have been tried everywhere and failed. And so this conflation is of those things, it's just not based in reality. That's what Zoran Mamdani wants.
It's not about free.
He wants free.
There's nothing free. It's about who builds it and who owns it. Your guy, Cuomo,
I agree with
he
you
did
that
such a great job. Such a great job that Zoran.
Corbin, I'd like to step in here and
yeah.
When you talk about the economic, we've just had a very, very thorough economic policy conversation. When you sell the economic policies, let's say, to voters outside of New York City on this kind of stuff, on top of that, you've also got questions of defunding the police. You've also got questions of some of the other social issues that the analysis from a lot of people coming out of 2024 was Democrats really need to step away from this kind of stuff because you're never going to win back that voted for Obama, voted for Trump voter in 2016. What about that effect?
I mean, that's not what I think the focus is on. The focus when it comes to how we're going to rebuild this country is about our ability to produce the things that we need, the energy that we need, the hospitals, the coverage that we need. In 1980, 40% of the hospitals in this country were owned by the American people, cities, counties, states, and the federal government. Now it's less than 10%. And what we're seeing is a surge in costs. Why? Because we can't compete. You talk about what you built there in New York. You know who built the subway in New York? The people that built the subway in New York was a company that was owned by New York City back in the early 1920s and 30s and 40s. That's who built the subway. Direct employees for the city of New York. LaGuardia, you mentioned the name attached. You mentioned LaGuardia, the name attached.
Union workers who have union
was a
salaries.
socialist.
Okay. Listen, the idea that you're going to say that public safety has nothing to do with this is crazy. The people that just ran in New York City with the backing of Bernie Sanders and with Zoran Mamdani say things not just like abolish the police. They say abolish ICE. They say abolish the border. They were at a terrorist celebration rally on October 8th. And you cannot pick and choose the things you want to highlight about the DSA while ignoring the rest of the platform and think that somehow is okay.
Okay, Melissa,
you absolutely can. I can pick and choose what I like about the Democratic Party. Daggone right I can.
It is a midterm election year, and we will be having this conversation again and again. Corbin, Trent, Melissa DeRosa, thanks very much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.